it's titled, and it's a long title, it's titled Cash or Cashless. Who cares? It's about how money and the finance industry can be a catalyst for the sustainability transformation. Wow, that's long, as I already said, and there's a lot to unwrap, there's a lot to talk about, and it's fitting, it's very fitting, and we all know that money and cash is shaping how we think, it's shaping how we come to decisions, how it impacts our lives, our daily lives, and that's only on a micro, on a very private level. And sitting here, we have protagonists for the very macro movement, for that big tidal wave of money that's being funneled from unsustainable ventures into hopefully sustainable ones. Hope you guys, I'm not over-promising anything, but you know, these are three people I'd love to talk about that. Sitting here, right next to me, to my left, is Lubomila Joranova, co-founder and CEO of Plan A. Great you could make it. Then there's David Leis, managing director of Ecolytic, and he's grabbing his microphone. And lastly, we have Leslie Lee, co-founder of U-Impact. And we're going to be talking about what you do, what your companies are doing, and how you want to shape the future of the money markets. And you're all positioned in a different area of the money markets, which makes it super interesting. But let's all start with the come to sustainability movement, or a moment that you all had your epiphanies, because you all used to work in different sectors in the financial industry. Maybe starting with you, Leslie. What was going on before you became part of U-Impact?
So my name is Leslie. My background is in finance. I started with JP Morgan in London the day Lehman Brothers went bankrupt. So if any of you remember, that was back in 2008 on the 15th of September. That's how I started in a credit trading space. So you could imagine in the middle of the credit crisis, and that's how I started as a graduate student with that. And then after that, I spent over a decade in financial services, in banking in London, having witnessed the financial crisis, a couple of the cycles. And then what that made me realize, actually, if you think about how the credit crisis started, it's the banking system capitalizing on lacking information, so information asymmetry from individuals like people like you and me. We're talking about people might not necessarily have enough money, a lot of money, might not necessarily have the financial literacy. And this is when it comes to 2019, I thought, you know what, it's time for me to take a leap of faith and let's do something that benefiting the majority of the society. And that's how U-Impact was born. So what we do is that we're really helping the end investors, so individuals like you and me, to start putting money into sustainability, to start sustainable investing. So it's B2B to C model that we're pursuing. So yes, great to be here.
That's great, but I'd love to have a panel just about talking how the first day of your job would be starting at Lehman Brothers on the 15th of September 2008. Wow, that's legendary. So that's going to be a whole program by itself. David, what about you?
How do you manage that with the headphones? Can you get a translation as well?
A bit of a DJ.
Yeah, I'm getting everything. getting everything.
Super convinced. But hi, I'm David, one of the co-founders of Ecolytic, and well, my background is in payments for the last 20 years, so also decades. Weirdly. So I started in acquiring, moved later on into issuing, and roughly 8 years ago I stumbled across sustainability. My awakening moment was actually a beach in Thailand. Being very German, complaining why so much trash lying around. It's such a beautiful paradise, couldn't know the cleaning up. So that was my German. And then suddenly I figured out, well, there might be a bigger problem behind it. And that was my awakening moment to sustainability. What do we do? As Ecolytic, we actually help consumers understand their individual influence on the environment by basically analyzing your payment behavior and then helping you to understand what is it and what is not what you should do and what you can't do in order to protect the planet. And yeah, so we are also B2B2C. So our customers are actually banks. So we are a layer on top of the banks. We don't have an app. We just enable banks to do this magic. And then also explain how beautifully money can be used to build a better world.
Right, thank you. It's always a beach, huh? Always great things come to you when you just sit there, okay.
But you actually have the time to use your brain, right?
My turn to tell about the beach. So 2016, I was after a sequence of various jobs in finance. I was in investment banking, then I was in VC, then in fintech for a few years. I also found myself on a beach, but in Morocco. And I was supposed to be learning to surf, ended up cleaning beaches from plastic for a week. And then when I came back to, at that point where I was living in London, I was a little bit mind blown by the amount of trash that was also available there and how little people had of responsibility to be caring about the environment. That started a process of a lot of digging. I learned about climate change whilst learning about pollution, and within a year's time I had developed a data model that was looking into the worst performing environmental indicators and the money that was flowing into addressing those. Sad reality, after crunching 200,000 data points, what came out was that there was no positive correlation between climate change knowledge and funding going to address it. So that kind of kicked off the whole Plan A journey. It took a little bit of a humbling and taming my mind to get to the point of knowing that I knew too little to just jump in the topic. And I think from today's perspective, why I'm incredibly grateful about this first 1 year of a lot of digging is because it gave me context and of the importance of science, but also it gave me an understanding how oblivious the business world was about the challenges ahead of us.
Now, coming from a bird's eye view, like the whole economy is kind of embracing a transformation period, or it actively is trying to actively shape it and not be left behind. Can you tell me about the specifics or the specific challenges that the finance industry has, maybe compared to other industries?
I'll jump in here just because maybe my comment is a little bit more meta level and there's other experts here in the particular finance domains. So the problem that we have with the economy at the moment globally is that we have the wrong mathematics. We look at GDP growth as the reference point for success, but that is actually while ignoring all the KPIs that define how healthy the economy is. An economy is not healthy only based on the growth in money. It is healthy if also the environment is healthy, if there's equality, if society is also happy. And these kinds of KPIs are now flowing around the atmosphere as concepts that we hear, they pop up, they show up as a report, but then we don't account for them. When you look at the actual assessment, and this is what we do with also, of course, our clients and with our platform, we truly believe that there's a necessity for anyone that wants to be relevant tomorrow as a business to start incorporating KPIs that go beyond money in order to understand how successful they are. A, because they're going to lose their clients if they're not prepared for the future, because their supply chains are going to be broken because of climate risk that they didn't account for. B, because their employees are choosing their jobs with values. And C, because investors are now starting to understand that a lot is at stake with the carbon bubble that is being built because of the fossil fuel industry.
And we've all heard of products such as like green bonds or, like this big trend of impact investing. That's only the tip of the iceberg. Like, how has this knowledge, so to speak, about new products and about new shapes of financial things, how has it changed how you go about your job?
So if you break it down, it's a finance, we're talking about, it's a huge topic. But if we break it down, the barriers, why people cannot get access to the financial market right now. Number one, information overflow, right? All sorts of information, either about a product, either about sustainability, is all over the place. Even if you have a look at ESG rating, you take one company with multiple ESG ratings, they all come in different shapes and colors. Number two is about how this information is delivered to the end users. If we're talking about end investors, it has to be accessible, simple enough for them to be able to digest and make informed investment decisions. Number three, so having worked in banking for over a decade, what I realized is that, tons of focus on product, tons of focus on data, but what is ignored is actually people. What is finance all about? Finance is actually all about people. It's all about people's lives in various perspectives. So this is where we think the people aspect is all about their behavior. is about changing. How can we empower them in various ways so then they will have a fundamental behavioral change? That's why at U Impact we say, okay, data are important, the way to deliver, to communicate it to the end users, and also third, the behavioral science. How can we see the different types of behavior and really empower with the specifics, the tools and data and knowledge to help them to make informed investment decisions in a sustainable way.
So people are inherently good and they just need the data to back up their goodness, so to speak.
Right.
That's beautiful.
It's like Black Mirrors.
Kind of, yeah. But it's like the opposite of Black Mirror. It's the positive or the optimistic version, actually. David, I read in an interview with you that you were calling for companies to make transparent their policies about carbon and impact accounting. How far along are you with that?
Fixed.
Fixed. So that's what I heard today. There's apparently a governmental initiative on digitalization, and in order to solve the problems, it's just that we're done. So similar. I think we're just at a starting point, right? I think one of the things that we all share is we need more data, right? So we now start to acknowledge we need more KPIs than just cash. It's everywhere written. Our economy, our society, we need to factor other elements into it, and it needs to be part of our understanding of how we do business. And then when you do a reality check right now, well, if you look at all of the companies out there, it started to take off thanks to companies like Plan A and others to actually start adding new measurements on it of what is it actually what companies or even businesses and individuals has for an influence, right? But I think the biggest problem we all tap into is we need to make this data available, because we have a global problem that we can only address when we work together. And now comes the interesting fact, right? Over the last 20 years, we kind of learned the new gold out there is oil. Then we know the new gold out there is data, and now we even have it more complexity through GDPR and other data rules. But honestly, in order to solve the problem, we need to be more open, right? So my scope 3 emissions, maybe your 1 or 2. So we need to interact anyway. And in order to build this level of transparency, we need to educate basically businesses out there saying, look, it's not enough to once a year do your finance and taxes and publish your reports. You have to do way more of it. So you need to embed this element of analyzing what is your social influence, what is your influence on the environment, and make this available. And then we can have a fair discussion about it.
Who are you talking to in politics? Like, who's on the other side when you have that kind of talk?
A lot of people.
Who especially? Like,
I think honestly that's a better question you can address, because I mean a lot of the regulations that coming in is you guys have to first implement it to make sure your software is following into it. But I think we represent more or less the consumer side of things, right? And I can tell you from the experience and the studies we're having, it has, I would say, in the last 5 to 6 years, it has completely switched. When we started 8 years ago, remembering sitting on a stage like this in 2015 in London, people looked at me and was like, what has payments and banking to do with sustainability? I mean, there was some niche nerd somewhere trying to solve this, but it wasn't a topic. And I think now it's mainstream. We all worried. We all want to do something. We all want to act, but we often don't know, do I use the paper bag now or to actually take the train and the flight? And what is it now? I can't compare it. So even as an individual, I have a lack of data that businesses and others can provide. But I think addressing regulations, you're better off.
I just want to jump on what you were saying about data was the new gold. I think where we are now, from the perspective of the industry in which Plan A operates, is that CO2 is the new gold, because businesses are starting to realize that they're wasting a lot of opportunities for maximizing their resources by not understanding where their resources are going. I'll give a simple example. Like if you are a fashion company, quite often you end up overproducing at 30 to 50%. And that, by assessing your data, shows you that you could have made a lot more money if you would have sold these products or if you would have produced less. So having these KPIs in mind actually allows you to see your business as one that is more efficient with its own resources. In terms of the political side of the story, I personally interacted quite extensively with the European Commission because I think it is quite useful to have this bird-eye view on what they are thinking. They are impressively active on the topic of sustainability. Just in the last 3 weeks, there's been announcements about carbon neutrality to be banned. There's been an announcement about unused stock from fashion companies also becoming a punishable act. There's been an announcement that companies would need to support their claims about sustainability with climate transition plans. All of this is becoming a law within the next 2 years. And that's incredibly exciting, but also giving us a lot of hope that there's not enough talking. Now there's actually a lot more focus on the necessity of the quantity of the action. And where we come in play with them is that we give the perspective of the clients that we work with. Planet works with 1,500 companies and more of the likes of BMW, Chloe, even the Commission is a client. And that gives us, this perspective of what is the common challenge that they face.
I remember talking to you beforehand. You were kind of impatient. You said it's not moving along fast enough. We want to go faster. Of course, everybody always wants to go faster. It's the nature of humanity. But still, there's so much going on that could be used as an excuse. We have the inflation. We have a huge war going on right now. So there's different things to be thinking about that people are caught up in right now. What do you have to say to that? When people.
Yeah, you hear us? You hear me? Okay, great. Well, we're talking about headwinds. However, from these conversations we've had with the financial institutions, the sustainability is not going away, right? Climate change is not going away. When it comes to ESG, the budget is there. However, it's a subtle difference when it comes to how they prioritize things in the grand scheme of sustainability. Right? They're starting to realize that sustainability doesn't just mean cost for them. So when it comes to the value proposition, there are ways we can deliver sustainability, generate revenue at the same time. So really, a lot of that is actually awareness and education that has to come from business side, probably from driven by the startups like us. We're saying we can drive sustainability, do well, and do good at the same time. And then just now there was a point about the data and regulation. If you look at the regulators, we see all of these regulations coming out, SFDR, EU taxonomy. Those are really, really welcomed schemes trying to have the data harmonized, standardized, with the aim that general public can use the data to make more sustainable decisions. However, if you come back to the ultimate aim of those regulations, they're really trying to mobilize private capital towards sustainability. But if you have a look at those disclosures, those data is very overwhelming. It's not made for normal people to read that. So how we approach that at UImpact, we jump in to say, actually, we can translate that, the standardized data, to a way that is accessible for people like you and me.
Thanks, Leslie.
If I may jump in, I think one of the other problems is that the topic of climate change is way too political, or it has been way too political. So we're always talking about, okay, is that now a real thing? How dangerous is it? It has to affect our economy. But hey, by the way, I mean, we're driven by cash, right? Our entire life and society is driven by cash, but it needs to be part of it. But I think one of the the best example is we're talking about 1.5, like, oh yeah, that's a goal that has been agreed in Paris. So this is already a political statement saying we agreed to 1.5. But I think we're ignoring the fact this is a planetary boundary. It's not a political goal to get here. If we overstep 1.5, excuse my language, we are fucked. And I think that is something we don't realizing. We're trying always to, oh yeah, politics has agreed in Paris to say 1.5. Well, we have a goal here. We shouldn't overstep it. And I think getting this political discussion out of it, saying, look, this is a crisis. It's a planetary crisis, a humanitarian crisis. Let's address this as such, and not as another agreement that we have to put together in order to make sure our wealth is not crumbling. Because our wealth will crumbling automatically. Now is the chance to actually save it by, measure, activate, and see that we actually do the transition before it's actually too late. And I think this is where we make ourselves way too more comfortable on saying, it's a political discussion, others will solve it.
If I jump in, actually...
Maybe as a closing statement, because we have to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Thanks.
But I actually want to jump in to be a little bit the devil's advocate, because by living in this industry for the last 6 years, I feel like the only thing that has kept me alive and motivated is positivity. And what I think we have a big issue with is the whole narrative related to sustainability, because we spend way too much time on panicking rather than thinking of sustainability as the biggest economic opportunity that we have. We have so much to lose, but also so much to win if we focus ourselves and fixate on the idea that the planet is going to be fine. Humanity is not, but humanity has always been able to go out of crises with, of course, a lot of damage, be it mentally, be it physically, but with the clear mind of having stepped up its game and being able to progress further. So what excites me about the big challenge that we're dealing with is that we're smart, we're innovative, we have ideas, we believe in ourselves, we have been battered for a few years now by COVID, Ukraine war, and just so many events that maybe didn't make us super happy, but yet again we're all standing back as a society and doing quite a lot. I think that this is what should be the activation element related to how we decide on what we do.
Yeah, stepping up. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Leslie. Thanks a lot, David. Thanks a lot, Lumila. Thanks a lot for staying with us through the technical difficulties and whatever else happened. I don't know. I didn't see what was going on. So, thanks a lot for staying with us.